Welcome to the Startup Grind.
So welcome to another episode of Startup Grind. And today we're going to be speaking to the founder of the Cape Epic, Kevin Vermaak. And we're going to be hearing his story of how he turned his vision into an absolute reality of one of epic proportions.
My name is Andres Piri. I'm the chapter director for Lusaka Startup Grind, and I'm looking forward to today's session with the founder of Cape Epic.
Hi, I'm Lelemba Piri. I'm the head of talent for Zona. I'm looking to learn about what lessons that the founder of Cape Epic had during his journey and how to avoid as many pitfalls as possible as an entrepreneur.
Yeah, my name is Ibok Tembo and I'm an aspiring entrepreneur. And I'm here to learn from the founder of Cape Epic, like how he managed to start a company so big, to be the largest mountain biking, national live, circuit. So, and I'm also here to learn about mistakes and any challenges you find when starting a company.
I'm Craig Wallace from Also Travel, and I'm quite interested just to hear from Kevin the trials and tribulations that he went through trying to set up and keep going, and not to stop. So it's really the issues that he went through and how he succeeded through that. That's what I'm interested to hear.
Hello, I'm Chris Lopesha. I work for a company called ALNA. We do project management in the construction industry. And tonight, I just want to find out more about Kevin and Cape Epic. Quite enjoy cycling, so I want to see where it all started from and his ideas and passion for the industry.
My name's Lizette. I'm in the health industry for wellness. I hope to learn how he overcame obstacles and how he got where he got today.
Hi, my name is Sebastian. I'm from a company named Voice. We're in voice over IP. Like to meet like-minded entrepreneurs and have a good time.
Alright, Paul here from Wise Satisfy. I've been with the Startup Grind guys from the very beginning. It's been a couple of months since I've been back, and man am I glad to kind of hear the Cape Epic story. I think if I can do in 10 years what they've done, I'm going to be a winner. So here's to a good night.
Tonight we're going to be chatting to Kevin Vermaak. Now, this guy started out with a vision, a dream, and he's turned into like one of the most successful and the most televised multi-stage race in the world. There's a lot of multi-stage, about 10 or 15 or 20 multi-stage races around the world, and theirs is the most I think it's absolutely incredible. He's also the Burgers Ambassador of the Year for 2014 or 2013, I like that, and Soccer Kaufman, very nice. And also, Cape Epic won Sports Participation Event of the Year for Discovery in 2014. So, guys, can you please stand up? Give a massive round of applause. There we go. Stand up, guys. Round of applause for Kevin Vermaak. Woo! Thank you very much. Thank you. Please sit down. So, for the international audience, for YouTube and that, can you tell us in 60 seconds what is the Cape Epic?
It's an international mountain bike stage race, run over 8 days every year in March, normally near the third or fourth weekend of March. And it attracts riders from all over the world, professionals, so the Olympic gold medalists, the world champions, as well as amateurs from all over the world. This year we had, I think, 55 different countries represented. It's incredibly difficult to get into because literally the entries set out in seconds, 1 year, full year in advance. And riders ride completely off-road within 2 minutes of their partner for the full 8 days. The winners will take maybe 30 hours over 8 days. The guys coming near the back of the field will take about 60 hours. And it's incredibly tough. Many folk would rank it as one of the toughest physical experiences of their lives, and they'll train for 6 to 9 months to finish it.
Cool. That sounds hectic. So anybody rough enough to do that? Okay. Can you tell us where were you born?
I was born in a small town called Uitenhage, which is where all the Volkswagens are
We got some
together.
PE people here, nice. Yeah, give them a round, guys, all the way.
And went to the only English school in town, so that's why my Afrikaans is not so great, even if my surname's Vermaak. But yeah, so then I went to UCT after finishing it in Utenag, and then shortly after graduating, I went abroad.
Okay, so you stayed in London, I think it was about 8 years or so.
Yeah, so I studied electronic engineering at UCT. Brilliant degree for entrepreneurs. And then
It's actually quite interesting. I've met a lot of entrepreneurs and I asked them, what do you guys do? Or what do you study? And they're doing everything else but electronic engineering.
I didn't do a single day of electronic engineering, but it certainly set me up for the rest of the things I wanted to do in my life.
Do you also have your mom coming up to you, Kevin, how do I plug the TV in? Or how do I do this? Do you have those kind of questions?
No. Before I even studied, I stopped doing that. But yeah, so I went, after I graduated, I went across London and worked in primarily IT.
Okay, no, yeah, as many electronic engineers do.
Yeah, I mean, I think in the UK, certainly 20 years ago, an engineer, if you mentioned the word engineer, they thought that it was greasy fingernails working under a car. You know?
Okay, and then what did you decide to come back, or what made you stay there for only 8 years?
When I left South Africa, it wasn't with a view to coming back. I pretty much, as many young white male graduates did in the mid-90s, left the country thinking that they would explore their future and opportunities around the rest of the world. And so I basically set up my life in the UK. I've got a British passport, and actually I got to a point where I felt that I'd been there long enough and I was looking for the next thing to do in my career, 30 years old, and I got the idea for a mountain bike race, and that's a different story how I actually got the idea, but it was a question of coming to South Africa because it was really the best place in the world to do it. If I'd found a different place in the world to put on a mountain bike race, I probably would have gone there. It wasn't like I was coming back to South Africa and then I thought of an idea. It was like I was in London, got the idea to do a mountain bike race, and then I thought, wow, it's in Cape Town, and then I thought, wow, I can come and live in Cape Town for the next few years and do something fun that I really enjoy. And I had these dreams of riding a KTM up and down the western province, designing a route.
And why Cape Town? Was it because you were born here, or born here but lived here?
Yeah, so why was Cape Town an awesome venue for the Cape Epic? So there are three reasons. First of all was that we had amazing services. Even if I'd been living abroad, I knew that great things were happening in the country. We had the world's biggest time cycling event. Just in that year, we put on the Cricket World Cup in 2003. And yeah, they'd all been organized incredibly well. And it was almost like the flavor of the month. And then secondly, our weather and the fact that we're in the Southern Hemisphere, and that in March, it's before the World Cup season starts in Europe. So you could quite easily get all the top international mountain bikers to come out to South Africa in March. Many of them are actually training here at that time of the year anyway. And then thirdly, I thought that, with my contacts in South Africa, I probably would be able to do a better job than the events that I'd been to around the world. And that was.
So you thought you could do it better?
Yeah, absolutely. I did this. I'd been mountain biking for a long time, not doing races. I wasn't a professional mountain biker at all, but I just loved the sport and used to do quite a lot of it in London. And myself and some friends went across to Costa Rica, and I was the first South African ever to take part in something called La Ruta de los Conquistadores, which is probably the oldest mountain bike stage race in the world. It follows the route of the conquistadors or the reverse route from the Pacific to the Atlantic through Costa Rica. And it was pretty tough, and yeah, we paid a lot of dollars to get into the race, and it was the riding was amazing, but the actual experience around it, the logistics around it was pretty average, and there were just lots and lots of Americans spending dollars doing this race, and I thought, wow, there's probably a business here, and for sure we could do it better in South Africa, and I felt that with my project management experience, I could probably project manage an event like this a lot better than what I was experiencing. And also because Europe is a much bigger mountain biking market than the Americas. So I thought, great, let's come back to London and put a plan together, and really started in London. Started the race in London. I started the logo, signed up some German partners to market the race internationally. And that's only when I actually.
Did you do a lot of research most of your research while you're in London? You didn't like, okay, I'm coming home and starting it, or did you do all your research first in
It was all
London?
pretty quickly because I finished this massive project at work in about October, and I headed off to Costa Rica in November. And then while I was actually doing the race, I got the idea. I thought, South Africa would be the right destination. And then literally from the time I got back to London, which was like the 3rd or 4th week of November, I mean, I can remember the dates distinctly. It was pretty much, I did the research. I really wasn't into mountain biking racing per se. That was actually the first race I ever did. Before that, I did expeditions across the Himalayas and doing long distance and just touring really in expeditions. And so that was November, and I put a business plan, very rough business plan, not even a business plan, more concept for the event. By December, I sent it across to some companies in Germany. Went to visit them first week of Jan, decided which partner I wanted to work with to market the race internationally, and then came back, resigned on Monday after that weekend in Munich. And then, yeah, a month later, I was back in South Africa after being in the UK for 8 years. So it was literally the space of 3 months that I got the idea and wound up my life in London and was back in South Africa on the 14th of Feb 2003.
And then when did you do the first race?
So the first race was pretty much a year after I arrived in South Africa. Like I said, it started in November. So by the time I landed in Cape Town, I'd booked my stand at the August Expo to kind of like start promoting it. We had a logo, I had the website kind of started being built. I had the name, had the rough concept in terms of the towns where we wanted to go. So I'd done all that in London actually.
Okay.
So I pretty much hit the ground running. Last few weeks at RBS was organising a Cape Epic for sure. Yeah.
Nice company resources right there.
Yeah. But the first event was pretty much exactly a year after I arrived in South Africa, and so you could say it was 15 months after I had the idea. And today it takes us about a minimum of 18 months actually to start to plan the next year's event.
Minimum of 18 months.
Yeah, absolutely minimum. I mean, the route for what is the next year's 2016 race, so the 2018 venues are sorted. You know, so
Really?
because it's pretty big now, so we have to find venues that can host us. And part of the concept is that we change the route every year. So it's not an easy deal to find venues that are big enough to actually host the race now.
How do you go about finding venues? Or how do you go about planning the route?
So that was myth number one about starting the race, is I thought that I'd buy a KTM and be riding up and down the Western Cape, designing routes. As it turned out, I spent I've spent my whole career in South Africa doing the Epic behind a computer, employing people to actually get out there on a KTM and design the route. But so now, I mean, it's very different. In the early years, I had a team in Knysna that organised it, but because the first 5 years of the race, it was moving every day for 8 days from Knysna to Cape Town. And that was actually very important in the brand building for the event. But in our 6th event, we actually changed the concept, and we could start it anywhere, basically. And the route changed every year, but we would literally take it to Cedarburg if we wanted, or Franschhoek, wherever. It didn't have to start in Knysna every year. And in terms of designing the route, there really are only so many towns that can host us, because to give you an idea, there's it's about 4,000 or 5,000 people that are following the race every day, that are looking for accommodation in these towns, or staying in the race village that we set up. And you might not think so, but you actually need quite a lot of tourism services to accommodate that number of people moving every day. And our race village itself, it's pretty big. It's a matter of really, we need about 7 or 8 rugby fields put together that's the footprint of our race village. And then if you add all the public transport, the access to it, or the crowd control access and the vehicle control access. So there are really only so many venues in the Western Cape, and we kind of know them, and we have the relationship with the landowners to secure them. And then it's a question of mixing them up, because you want to make sure the route is different every year. So even if we might go to the same towns again, we won't have that combination of towns before, and then new routes will have been built between those towns. So we've got a route committee of about 5 people that are on an annual retainer. They don't work in our office, but they're on a retainer that are literally working 2-3 years in advance because it's quite a commercial relationship with the towns now as well. There's a massive economic impact. They give us some things, and we've obviously got to secure things for them, because if there's any hiccup in the relationship, we just can't afford it, basically, because everything is built around what the route's going to be for that year's event.
Now, when you started out planning this route, what was it like? I mean, that you were a nobody. How did you get farms or wine farms or to plan those routes? How did you talk to them, or how did the process work?
Well, I had this IBM ThinkPad that had a PowerPoint presentation that I took with me all the time. And I mean, really all I had was, you had to try and sell it and explain to them what it was. And I just showed
Don't worry, we will be mucking up your...
Over and again. And you mentioned in the beginning, you thought, how many stage races around the world? Well, the reality in South Africa, to give you to paint a picture of what mountain biking was in South Africa back in 2003, as well as the state of the sport. There were really only 4 international mountain bike stage races in the world, pretty much one in every continent. And we aspired to be the African stage race, and I always said that we would be number 1. We were going to be the biggest and best stage race in the world. In South Africa at the time, the longest mountain bike race, there was one race that was 100 Ks, which is mostly flat going downhill. Mostly gravel road going downhill. And then other races were like 60, 70 Ks. You paid about 80 Rand to enter it. And it was very much like a volunteer-oriented sport. In the Olympics, we'd never ever had a South African male that participated in the Olympics. In fact, our mountain biking was so bad in South Africa, no South African ever even finished a World Cup race, because if you get lapped, you get pulled off the circuit, and no South African had even finished the race yet. And so we came along, and we really had to educate the audience, the public, the landowners, mountain bikers in South Africa, and tell them, well, you used to pay $80 for a race, now I want you to spend then it was $8,000 to enter the race. And you're going to do 100 Ks every day for 8 days in a row. It was quite different to what was being offered in South Africa at the time. Now, mountain biking in South Africa is completely different. I mean, we're the mecca of mountain biking worldwide. I think we have over 50 stage races, 3 days or more in South Africa.
In South Africa?
In South Africa alone. Okay, 3 days or more. And the 5 of the biggest grossing by entry fees mountain bike races in the world, all happening in South Africa. So it's a very different picture now. You don't have to explain to anyone what a mountain bike stage race is, but believe me, 13 years ago, it was definitely the case.
Cool. You were talking about fees. I think it's 60,000 Rand to enter this year. So if you want to race the Cape Epic for 2016, if you bought a ticket, it's 60,000 Rand, which is what, $5,000 roughly.
Well,
don't take in the exchange rate. Okay, so $5,000, 60,000 Rand. Why is it so expensive?
I'm happy you asked, because the reality is that it is the most expensive mountain bike race in the world. And but the reality is, as a rider, you're still only paying about 60% of the cost. I'm quite fine with that ratio now, because we've got sponsors that make it up. But for the first 5 years of the race, when we were hemorrhaging and literally losing money hand over fist, we ran up to debt of about 8 million in the first 5 years.
8 million.
So obviously you can imagine the stress, organizing the race, it sells out, everyone's loving it. But you know that you're like in the red for 8 bar. It is very, very difficult to handle that criticism that, the race is so expensive, knowing that actually you're paying people to do the race. But obviously you can't tell anyone that, because they probably wouldn't give you the entry fees if they knew that your entry fees were paying off the loss from the previous year. But in terms of where the race is today, the reality is that you're really not just entering, it's not just 8 days of mountain biking. You're getting to experience this show that is the Absa Cape Epic. You get to race with 3 media and hospitality helicopters flying over you non-stop. You've got Olympic, gold, silver, bronze, world champions. I think next year we've got 7 of the top 10 UCI ranked riders participating. You've got 55 countries riding around you. It's the whole package is the Cape Epic experience, which most people say, it's just this very special once-in-a-lifetime experience. And the reality is that it's not expensive, because it sells out instantaneously. At 60 grand, it sells out literally instantaneously. I mean, for the web guys, I know we literally put the link live in one cycle, take it off again, and our entries are full. And that's 24, not even 24 hours after the race finished the day before. So interesting thing on price is that, if you're trying to sell a VW in the current environment, and you wonder what is your price? If you increased it, might you make more money? But if you kept it down, might you sell more cars and then make more money? But when you've got a set number, we've got 1,200 entries. We don't measure growth by the number of riders in the race. For us, we've got 1,200 riders in the race. If it sells out, the bottom line is you left money on the table. You could have charged more. It's not like selling something where you've got a limited amount, unlimited amount. You can always sell more. It's like we've got 1,200. So the reality is it's not expensive, it's underpriced, and you're still only paying 60% of what it actually costs to deliver this experience.
So what are those costs?
Well, to give you an idea, we spend, we're the richest prize money, the biggest prize person in the world of mountain biking.
Okay.
It's about 1.7 million we pay in prize money.
Wow.
For women's cycling, up until the recent announcement in the Tour de France, we've also paid the highest prize purse for any women's race, road or mountain bike, anywhere in the world. And you might think, well, I'm an amateur. Why I don't care about the prize money for the pro. I actually just want to participate in the race. But the thing is that, like I said, it's a whole package. Like, you're signing up to this captive experience with the world champ, and he's not going to ride if he's not getting this attractive prize money. And the reality is actually the sponsors are covering that portion. But we've got a staff of 25. It's a massive amount of work to organise the race.
So you've got full-time 25 people.
Yeah, we've got 25 full-time staff.
Working right around the year.
Exclusively year-round.
For an 8-day race.
For the 8-day race, yeah. The thing is that's the other thing, is our business is really not just the event itself.
Yeah.
Our business is monetizing the sports event brand. And so we will do things, in October, we'll have a big gala function in Joburg, we'll announce the route and have sponsors that will attend, we'll have literally sponsors from around the world. They'll come and be part of the experience to see the route for the next year. And so it's not really just those 8 days. It's more that we're creating a sports event brand, and there's lots of things you can do with that rather than just setting entry fees. And I think that's a huge differentiator between the Cape Epic and probably most other large participation-oriented events in South Africa. I mean, the big ones in Cape Town, obviously the Two Oceans, the Argus, Joburg got the 94.7 cycle race, you've got the Comrades. These races, typically the entry fee revenue is probably 70-80%, if not more, of the total income, and they're covering, it's obviously paying for the cost of the event. For us, the entry fee is, it used to be 40%. It's between 40 and 60% over the last 8 years. It's been 40 and 60% of our income. So we actually, for us, it's media, it's sponsorship, and then the entry fees is only part of our income. It's not the definitely not the main business for us.
Right in the beginning, how did you convince how many riders were there in the very first race? 1,200, or did you?
No, so the first, we've sold out everything. In the history of the race, we've never not sold out. Okay. Whatever we sell, whether it's entry fees or any optional extras, and it's a great position to be in, because then you can. You just, when you've got that demand, you can just keep on leveraging it. And so the first year of the race, even if we absolutely underpriced it by like 100%, we sold it in 3 days. And then the second year we sold out in less than 5 hours. And the first year we had 550 riders, second year we had 850, third year we had 1,050. And these numbers obviously we set beforehand. We decide we want 550 riders in the field. And the third race we did by lottery, and the lottery was massively oversubscribed. And then ever since then we've had a lottery, which is, people buy a lottery ticket and then lucky draw they get in. Yeah. We also now, I talk about setting a year in advance. So we have what we call early bird entries, and we open early bird entries the day after the race finishes. And most of the public entries go via the early bird entries. And then immediately we kick in the lottery. And we could sell the race out immediately with the early bird entries if we chose to. But for us, it's important to have an international representation, and we're always going to be underrepresented in a time zone where the entries are opening at 3 a.m. in the morning instead of 3 p.m. So we have that lottery system to ensure that we get a maximum geographic spread. So if you're from Costa Rica, you can enter the lottery, and then if you're the only rider from Costa Rica, you've got a very good chance to be successful in the lottery, because we actually want that large number of countries to be represented in the race.
So you said in the first, about 4 to 5 years, you were racking up 8.5 million rand in losses.
Yeah.
What made you carry on going through? Did you see the potential, or did your wife stand behind you? I believe she's here today. Thank you so much for coming.
So eventually you get in so deep that the only way to get out is to make it a success. And the graphs are going in the right direction, so you always think that eventually you're going to.
Next time I'm going to make it. Next time I'm going to make it.
Yeah. But I mean, that was the low point, actually. The low point in the whole experience, absolutely the low point, was in 2008, after doing the race for 5 years and getting complaints from some partners that had paid to be there, and they were complaining that the stand was too small or something. And you just have inside, you just know, like, hey, I basically subsidize you to be here. You're not paying too much to be here. And we worked the whole year to try and keep our costs down. But I mean, the answer was sitting right in front of us. I mean, we had this huge demand, like, why keep your price down? Just increase the price, and suddenly your problems were solved. But it still took us about 3 years to get out of the red properly. But I think that I forgive myself for those where we were at that time, because it was probably more important that we created the hype of the race selling out and have this massive perceived success. But it was incredibly lonely, because, after the first year, what I did first of all, I obviously exhausted my own available funds, time to just live for 18 months without drawing a salary, and basically cover the losses of the first year's race. But I knew that if we were successful, then the next race would sell out, and I had the entries teed up in those days 3 months after the first race. So I negotiated an extension of credit with the big suppliers, and then basically took the entry fees for the next year's race and paid off the losses of the previous race, but gone straight away. Like, you got all this money, you're thinking you organize the next race, and it was all gone immediately.
So cash flow was an issue.
Sure, and actually I remember having to borrow money from a friend just to be a bit more liquid. And it was incredibly lonely, because you actually couldn't tell anyone, because if a rider knew that their money was going to go into paying off the losses of the previous year, they probably wouldn't trust you with their money for 9 months before the next event. You also couldn't tell your staff, because we had some great staff joining us in the early years, and they were taking pay cuts to join us because they just loved what we were doing, and I needed them. And if they knew they were joining a ship that had such a big hole in it, then they might not have joined. So you had to keep that secret as well. So basically no one knew about this. I had 2 confidants, and one said throw in the towel, give up. The other one said cool, let's try and make it work. And so that was it. So it was incredibly lonely, and I think that that's probably some of the toughest years of my life.
What was your biggest failure that you've had?
The problem with an entrepreneur is that you're just eternally optimistic.
I like that. That's good.
So you make a mistake, and whilst you learn from it, you forget it so quickly. But for sure, that was a glaring obvious. I mean, we needn't have gone so far into the red if we just upped the price earlier.
Okay.
Like I said, you try and put these things out of your mind, so it doesn't. Maybe at the end of the interview,
Looking
I'll
forward.
come up with what was the biggest mistake.
And speaking of mistakes, I'm wanting to know what's happened.
Oh, that was
here?
a big mistake. Yeah. Well, basically, I've just recently employed a CEO to run the business, and so it meant I'm stepping out from the operational side of it.
Okay.
And it meant that I could finally ride the race, because I've always been a bit too busy organising. And so this is my first training ride, actually, for next year's race. I fell off and cut my face open. Yeah.
That's a good start. Good start.
Yeah.
Tell us about the Snow Epic.
So Snow Epic, in summary, is it's a 3-day race that we organised in the Swiss Alps. And there's a new trend in mountain biking called fat bikes, and basically it's a mountain bike with a tyre the width of a car, basically, and it gives better traction on soft sand and on snow. So the trend was like getting quite big, more in Europe than in South Africa. And I was on a ski holiday with my wife, and I thought, well, you can mountain bike here. And there are a lot of people that are actually training there throughout the winter to come and ride the Epic. And we're very, very popular in Europe, particularly in Switzerland. Mountain biking, even if it's a big sport in South Africa, it's very popular cycling in general is very popular in Europe, and especially Switzerland. So we thought, oh great, let's organise an event there. And we did, actually. We organised an event called the Snow Epic in the Swiss Alps, January. It went very well. I mean,
was it like a carbon copy of what you did here?
No. We tweaked the event format substantially for the
Is it also 8 days, or is it?
No, it was 3 days, and to be honest, it was much more accessible, and it wasn't like point to point. It was more like it was 5 events spread over 3 days. And basically, after the first event, we lost as much money as you'd expect for the first event. So if I was convinced of some of the conditions that were prevailing for that event, if it had gone forward, I certainly would have carried on, because we created it was cool. I mean, we got a standing ovation from the audience, and we would have sold out again the next year. But it wasn't the best use of my time and money to be doing an event with that format. So I actually sold it and got all my money back and got the experience. Yeah.
Did somebody just buy it? Did they relabel it? And is it still going?
So we had, I had a 66% stake in it, and I did it with a partner based in Switzerland. And I actually would have done it again, but we were looking for a venue that was cheaper than Switzerland. The day of the start of the Snow Epic, they changed, they cancelled their peg to the euro, so suddenly the Swiss franc was 13 to 1. And a very, very expensive destination in Europe. And so I was looking for venues for next year in Italy or Austria, slightly cheaper euro, and also a venue that was more conducive to the lessons we'd learned. We knew that you had to find a different type of venue. You needed not steep valleys and ski resorts. You needed more open snow plains to ride in. And we didn't find that venue. And in Europe, it's not like South Africa, where you've got municipalities that can't run their municipality, let alone give money to you to organise an event. In Europe, actually, they pay you to organise an event. So I needed to find a venue that would support us and was conducive to a scalable event. And we never found it. But then the partner with whom I'd be working in Switzerland had progressed with a town that is even more expensive. It's like one of the 5 most expensive resorts in Europe. So I said, no, I'm not going to learn the school fees again. And because for sure you'd take a bath again if you do it in Switzerland again, in that particular resort. And he didn't want to stop the relationship. He'd gone quite far.
With it, okay.
Working, so I said, okay. So basically kept the trademarks, and then just sold everything I put in, I got out. So that's the Snow Epic. It was very, very, it's a great experience. It gave me the confidence that we can organise events, because it's in a different country, and even running a website 2 different languages and engaging with suppliers from different, all over Europe. We used obviously a lot of suppliers we got from the Epic that we use in Europe, which is fine. But I think that there's a very important lesson to learn from that, because it also relates to something we did 8 years ago. Because in the first 5 years of the race, so we're 13 years in now, the first 5 years, when we were hemorrhaging, I thought that our business was actually event organising, and to stem the losses at the Cape Epic, it would be a good idea to almost leverage the overhead that we had, all these 25, well, those days wasn't as many, but the full-time staff we had throughout the year, to use them for different events. And so we organised 2 other events in addition to the Cape Epic. But we were kind of growing from a position of weakness, because the Cape Epic wasn't paying for itself, and now we're trying to organise more events that was giving us cash flow, because once again, pay you 6 months in advance, 9 months in advance. Excuse me, even for a new event. But also, we didn't have this successful model where we were actually charging a premium for the entries. and it was this turning point in the history of my business where I said, no, actually we are Cape Epic. We're Cape Epic mountain bike stage race. We're not in the business of organizing events. And so we actually canceled those events and focused exclusively on the Cape Epic and did certain things like increasing the entry fees and solving a few other things. And then, yeah, we got the business going again. And now again, we are at a place where we're looking for growth in new events. But certainly if I go back at that time, we were growing from a position of weakness, whereas now, if we looked at a new event, we would definitely be growing from a position of strength.
Here's a question. What was the biggest challenge to convince ABSA to sponsor the event?
So it was a big challenge because...
You mean sponsorships are challenging anyway?
Well, there's two things here. First of all, ABSA, 11 years ago when they sponsored us for the first time, because whilst all the big banks, 5 including Investec, are all sponsoring mountain biking events today, without a doubt, when the Epic launched and when ABSA signed, it is unthinkable that a bank would sponsor mountain biking. If you think ABSA, they were sponsoring the Bafana Curry Cup. These are iconic. The Springboks a few years later, the ABSA Premiership. To sponsor mountain biking, it just didn't fit in that league at all. So it actually was a big challenge for ABSA to sponsor it. It wasn't the group sponsorship the way it is now. It was more a business banking, or ABSA Business Bank as it was called then. And it was all about them getting access to clients because their clients, the absolute target market that was participating in the race. Funny enough, I approached 3 other banks as well, and they're not interested. At the time, Football World Cup was looming. And today, it's the awesome sponsorship for ABSA. It will be, in the end of our current 5-year term, it'll be the longest running sports sponsorship in ABSA's history. Wow. So it's amazing how mountain biking has actually become.
Did you create a relationship with them through hassling them, or did you know somebody that you could contact, or how did you actually get into it?
So that was an interesting one. Even in 2000, just before 2006, that event, I had enough staff that I didn't have to monitor the inbox of the email coming in from, just general inquiries. But I came in over Christmas, New Year, and I just thought, let me have a look at the shared mailbox and just see what's being said. And I looked at it, and I saw this one email, and it was signed, the signature on the email was Executive Assistant to the CEO, ABSA. And I thought, well, wow, this guy's riding the race. Let me see what he says. And I was pretty desperate because that is the year, actually, that there's a massive black hole in our funding. And actually, as it turned out, 2 things happened which saved us. But so I was pretty desperate, and ended up getting a meeting with the executive assistant who then put our proposal into the right channels within Business Bank. We were staring down the barrel of a gun at the time because I knew that year, the first year we did first of all, personal finances were exhausted, and then we got what I call this creative financing, where we'd take the income from the following year's race to pay for the previous year's losses. And then the third one was when we got a bridging loan from the IDC, and I encourage you, it wasn't that difficult to get funding from the IDC. Maybe it's different now, but our graphs were, we had selling art, we had lots of international riders, we had lots of international media exposure. Actually, we got great support from the IDC. So the IDC gave us a bridging loan for like a 3-year facility. And then we also got ABSA on board as a sponsor 6 weeks before that race.
6 weeks before, And then the relationship has been growing ever since then.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like I said, now it's we identified as one of their 3 main sponsorships, along with the Springboks and the ABSA PSL and the ABSA Cape Epic. It's their 3 main sports sponsorships. Yeah.
That's pretty cool. Well done.
Thanks.
What advice, if any, would you go back and give your 21-year-old self? You're only 22 now, but
Thanks. Yeah. I think I'd try and, even if 21 is almost too late for this, but just expose yourself as much as possible. I mean, that question is more a question that I'm thinking of for my son, who's 21
Who you're going to
months.
encourage to be an electronic engineer?
Yeah, whatever he wants to do. But I'd try and expose him to as much as possible so that he can make decisions with as much information as possible and much exposure as possible.
Like taking him to places, or what do
Yeah,
you mean by
like,
exposure?
I think growing up in a small town like I did, you know, for me going to UCT, like my vision actually was to travel after I graduated. It wasn't necessary to go and get an awesome job in, say, Alaska or something, or do something totally different. It was like my options were a bit limited, and you know, I think I would love it if in my during my school years that I'd gone to visit the NYC and just gone to see the bell ring rung, or gone to visit some Ivy League colleges, or gone to the West Coast and just seen what's going on there, and just being exposed to what's happening in the world.
In and around.
Because then you can, then you've got more information to know it's what
And you
your
can just see
options are.
different
And
viewpoints.
The whole world, exactly. The world's your oyster, and you can do anything. I think for me, I always thought I could do anything, but you just weren't aware of the options that were available to you.
Another question is, try to apply endurance tactics learned in extreme sports to your business life.
Just never give up. Just whatever it takes. I mean, you know, I would say the term I used for my own drive was stress-induced motivation, because sometimes you just have to keep on going because you know, the stress is so much that the only way to get rid of the stress is to actually solve it. So I remember I would do like I mean, it seems crazy, it's just a mountain bike race, but before the first event, I mean, there were things we just hadn't solved. I mean, to give you an idea, I sold out all the entries. So I had 550 people that had paid us $8,000 a pop. And I didn't know if the tents that I had told them they're all going to sleep in tents, you know, in the race village, and we're going to move these tents every day, and there's going to be a race village set up for you 8 days in a row. As it turned out, there was no one in the country that had 750 tents that we needed for the crew as well, but I didn't even know that by the time I sold it. So you can imagine everything else that I described on our website, also we just didn't know.
We're going to do this!
Yeah.
How? I don't know. We're going to do it.
Yeah, well, the thing is, that was like you just market, then you sold out. And I remember I went to go and watch a couple other races, went to the Tour de France. And then I remember coming back going, okay, now we've sold the entries, now I've got to start organizing it. And that's actually when I started. But so you can imagine you can imagine the stress going up to the race where there are just things you have to solve. And like I said, now, I mean, there's so many mountain bike stage races in South Africa. There's awesome suppliers that could do all this, you know, that do this all the time. But then no one even owned, I mean, I think Capetonian and UCT gave me an interesting statistic in those days that they didn't even sell that number of tents of one model in 1 year, and we needed, you know, 750 of them. But yeah, there were lots of things, you know, that we had to solve. And that was like, obviously, you get this. You can imagine you just can't sleep at night until that's solved. So,
and I'm pretty sure that was one of.
Just go and carry on working and try and solve it.
And that was one of the problems, as opposed to, you know, so you had a lot going on trying to solve all these problems.
Yeah, I mean, like stuff you take for granted now when you do a big race footage. But I mean, I remember we had to buy mattresses. We were ordering mattresses from Dial-A-Bed. And I mean, we worked out what size mattresses we need because we knew we needed to get like whatever 1,200 mattresses into a taut liner. So I remember doing the geometry to work out the size of the mattress that we needed. That's where the engineering came in. If they would all fit inside the Superlink taut liner, and doing like calculations on how fast we could move 750 tents. You know, if it took every staff member 60 seconds to put it up, 6 seconds down, whatever, to working out. Was it theoretically possible that you could actually move all these tents from one town to the next before the riders got there? So that was all like very, very theoretical. Now it's great. You've got like lots of suppliers that, I mean, they wouldn't even know that those calculations were done 13 years ago. Yeah.
This is incredible. Do you view other stage race events like Joburg to Sea or Wines to Whale or whatever? Do you sorry, do you view them as competition? Or, and if so, how do you outsmart them?
I should have asked this question first. How many people have been to the Cape Epic?
Well,
How many people, has anyone here ridden it?
no one's ridden it.
Okay, so you've actually been to see the race. You've been to the final day or the, okay. And then, I mean, so who can put up their hand and say they've been to the Joburg to see and the Cape Epic?
One person.
So
Dedication.
the reality is that we are selling something so vastly different between the Joburg to Sea and the Sinai to Sea and the Wine to Wales and the Cape Epic. If you think that those two products are in competition, then you really haven't understood what the Cape Epic is offering. So there's a few things I can say about that question. First of all, absolutely not competition. I love the Wine to Wales. I did it last weekend. I've done the Sinai to Sea. I love doing them. And what they do for us is they just promote the sport of mountain biking. And a lot of those races actually, like the Sinai to Sea, was originally put like 6 weeks before the Epic. It's now in May, but originally it was there because people could use it to train for the Epic. There are races all over the world, in fact, that are set around that time of the year so that people can train and prepare for the Epic. You know, we've got a very different model to those events. And whilst their model is what they're trying to achieve is so different to what we're trying to achieve, really don't see them as competition. I think some of them, they try and copy some things we do, but they actually don't know why we're doing it. So they see the manifestation of us offering a big prize money. So then they think, okay, cool, we can try and get increased entry fees and we'll offer a big prize money, but maybe it doesn't work for them, they're just wasting their money if they give away prize money if it's more of an amateur race. Prize money only makes sense if you've got an Olympic or like a top rider that might come. But you have to pay enough so that the top South African riders will come. So they shouldn't try and compete with us and say, oh, well, we paid like a third of the prize money of the Epic or whatever. So absolutely, we're not competition and we're absolutely different product. And I don't think they even see us as competition. There are one or two races in South Africa that are trying to compete on certain levels, but we're not too worried. I think that also there's a huge barrier to get to where we are. I mean, there's only space for, if you take any sport, there's normally one pedestal event for whatever reason it got to where it is. No one's saying that you can start a road race and you could compete with the Tour de France. It's like the Tour de France got a 100-year history. It's got the best date in the calendar. Everyone's on holiday. They all go and watch the Tour de France. People sitting there in front of their TV for hours. It's like you'll never be able to bridge that gap. The Giro is in May. It's terrible weather. In August, everyone's gone back to work. It's also sometimes it's even too hot in Spain. It's like those races are second. And in every sport, Dakar Rally, I mean, no matter what you do, the Dakar is the Dakar, and in motor rally, it's transcended the sport. And I think that was the opportunity I saw, was that the format in mountain biking in early 2000s, that didn't really have a pedestal event. There wasn't an event that had been commercialized and monetized so that it actually transcended the sport. And so my goal was to create a mountain bike stage race that transcended the sport, that even if you weren't mountain biking, you would know about the heroes of the event, or you'd know about the sport because of the event, rather than the other way around. And that opportunity existed in mountain biking, and I think we've kind of taken it worldwide. And there's a lot of things that we've booked. We've booked that date in the calendar. The World Cup starts 3 weeks after the Cape Epic, normally in the same time zone. That's our agreement with the UCI. There's no other stage race that Jose Almeida and let's take Jaroslav Kulhavy, the Olympic gold medalist and world champion. He doesn't do any other stage race in the year. It's only the Epic that he does, because he can't. I mean, you try and do a stage race in Europe in July, it's their World Cup season. You ain't going to get it. It's only because we've got good weather in March before the start of the World Cup season. That's just one reason why we've got this barrier that we've managed to put up around us.
I just want to go into innovation and into your TV series, the TV and the shows and the lights, but we're actually running out of time. Anybody has a question that you want to be asked? If anybody has a question, here we go, right in front. I've got the microphone here somewhere. There we go.
I used to produce sports events in the U.S., and I know that logistical stress craze very well. But I wanted to ask you at the beginning of this, what made it different? What made people come back? How did you know you weren't going to be a Joburg to see? Or is that over time you learned that the Cape Epic was going to be unique? You know, what was the magic? Was it the participants had an experience they couldn't have anywhere else, or was it, you know, ended up being this timing or the draw, the type of people you brought in, the course?
So I think there are a lot of reasons that makes the Cape Epic special, that makes people want to come back, makes it sell out in seconds. And I think that the reality is that mountain biking, it's not football. There's not as much money in the sport of mountain biking worldwide as there is in many other sports, many other more professional, more commercialized sports. So there are a lot of events that aren't necessarily organized in such a professional manner as the Cape Epic and many other events in South Africa now. And just a quick aside to that question, what we've done is, because we're always the most expensive, it allows any other mountain bike race in South Africa to start, and as long as it's cheaper than the Epic, you're not expensive. So in South Africa, you've got phenomenal organizers. You've got people that are like very experienced, like graduates that are, you know, making good money organizing mountain bike races. Nowhere else in the world.
No, just checking out.
And so in our case, we've got a very professional team that puts on a phenomenal service for the riders. It's always been our, like, you know, the first point in our ethos, the riders come first. Like, we want to deliver unrivaled experience at the race. And whether it's for professionals or amateurs. And so that goes across the board, you know, whether it's from the registration process to, you know, getting off the bike. We call it luxurious survival. The only thing they have to worry about is riding the bike. Everything else is utter luxury at the event. And I think that, like I said, there's lots of reasons. Another one is that Africa is, you know, it's quite exotic to come and mountain bike in Africa. So, you know, if you get a household names, like in the early years we had Bart Brenchens, the first ever Olympic gold medalist, you know, world champion, a household name in European mountain biking. He's subsequently done the event 10 times, 11 of the 12 events is done. And so, yeah, to get him, who just came to the race and loved it, it gave us huge exposure. He was in fact the rider that coined the phrase, the Tour de France of mountain biking. So, yeah, when you get that sort of feedback going back to European mountain biking, yeah, the marketing has got a roll-on effect for quite a long time.
Any other questions? Here we go.
60,000 rand per person or per team?
It's 60 grand per team of two. The thing is that the average expenditure of the race now is about 70 grand a pop per person, because we sell so much in addition to entries. Like our model is always that you can be sitting behind your desk in Zurich and you decide, I want to ride the Epic. You go to our website, except for your air ticket, you can buy everything. So we sell hotel accommodation before the event. We block book every hotel. Before we announce that we're going to Tilbach, we book out every single room in Tilbach. So even if you're not in the race, if you want to stay, you know, if your friends want to stay, or if you want to, you know, if you want to stay in a hotel rather than in the race footage in the tent that we give you, you buy it from us. So you book your accommodation beforehand, you book your accommodation afterwards from us. If you want to have a mobile home throughout the week, you want a masseur, you want a bike package, you can buy it all from us. And that was our model, and like I said, all those, we typically create as many accommodation packages as we can get hold of in those towns, because, you know, Franschhoek's fine, but Tilbach, Ceres, these towns, they don't have that much accommodation. So, you know, we will book all the accommodation that's appropriate for our sales channels, and then we sell it all, it sells out.
But do you reserve a few places for the top guys, the pros, the top 100 of the previous year? Surely they can't fall out because they weren't in that first second.
Absolutely. So it's quite a comprehensive allocation of entries. But our two main public tranches of entries are the early bird entries and the lottery. in addition to that, if you work for us and pay us, that's something cool for entrepreneurs to think about, is that even in the first year, we thought our brand is going to be valuable, and it's difficult to get access to the event. And one of the cheapest ways to actually spend 8 days in the Western Cape following the race is actually to stay in our race village. So why not come and work for us as a volunteer, pay us, and you get a guaranteed entry the next year. We sold out. And every year now we have about 3 times the number of applicants as we've got spots for volunteers. And literally from all over the world, they come and pay us to work for us. And those people get volunteers, so those are guaranteed entries. It's more of a commitment fee, because obviously we need those people. If they say they're going to come, then we need to know 100% sure that they're going to be there. So as soon as you pay a commitment fee, then for sure you're going to be there. So that was quite important to know we can rely on them. But we have volunteers. We have a wild card system. So if you're a national Olympic or a national or international champion, you can qualify for a wild card. We obviously have sponsor allocations. That's probably one of the easiest ways to get into the race, actually, is to go to ABSA and try and speak to your ABSA banker to get an entry. For South African, it's probably one of the most certain ways. What else? We've got volunteer charities. We've got a number of entries allocated to our partner charities.
There's quite a lot of partners that do fit in the 1,200. It's a limited amount of tickets.
Yeah,
do you often feel that you could make it bigger? Will you ever go bigger?
Well, the biggest race in the world's only got 189 riders in the race. So the Tour de France is by light years the biggest cycling race in the world, and they don't measure size by the number of entries in the race. So for us, people always ask like, "Oh, how can you grow it? Can you have more entries?" If your business is based on entry fee revenue, for sure, then you want to do it. For us, sponsorship is much more scalable than having more entries in the race. So it creeps up slowly as less and less people stay in the tents and they all stay in hotels. So we've gone from 1-2, I think we're on like 1-250, 1-3 or something.
You're very innovative in what you guys do, like the helicopters. Do you find drones are helping a lot these days for shooting and for TV and for accessing those difficult areas?
No, we do use drones. We're actually we use them less today than we did like 3 or 4 years ago. GoPro always had like a GoPro style drone before the big trend in drones came about. But to be honest, the long distances, we normally only use the drones for like get the start shoot, get the finish shot, and then more like amateur footage for like color shots.
And then for your TV, because I know you do quite a lot of TV coverage, how does the TV thing work?
So our TV program is comprehensive. We have partners in Germany that distribute the material for us. So from our very first event, even before the first event, when all we had was a PowerPoint presentation, we got Adidas International to sponsor us. So Adidas was always into international TV exposure. So even from the first event, we were paying an agency in Germany to give the material away for free. It's not football, rugby, cricket. Like in mountain biking, you pay someone to give it away for free, and if they do a very good job with them, you pay them more as a bonus because they gave it away to lots of people. That's how mountain biking TV works. You make the money back from the sponsors because it was shown everywhere. So right in the first year, we gave away quite a lot of international TV. So we have an agency that distributes it. We have an editing house in Germany that also cuts special news that's very appropriate for international news channels. And then we use Supersport to do our live production in the first and final day. And then we have Daily Highlights, which is the main package that we send around the world. It's like a 26-minute daily show. It's a joint production with a German company and a South African production company.
One more question. Okay, here we go. Megan. Who's got the... Oh, okay. Yeah, okay, go for it.
Yeah, to do with funding and partners. In the beginning, did you have to give away any equity share or any profit share, or how did you structure in the beginning to get the funding and to kind of get the business going?
So basically it comes down to risk, and all the risk was to me. I mean, I had partners in Germany that in the beginning it was when I say beginning, like the first few weeks, like, I think we could have gone down a route where they could have been shareholders. But the thing is that I was the one taking all the risk, and it was all my money going into it. So that discussion was closed very quickly. And in South Africa, I mean, it wasn't necessary. The IDC gave me a loan. And yeah, I was just lucky. I'd worked fairly hard in London for 8 years, so I didn't need money for myself personally on a day-to-day basis. So you got the income, and then it never came up really. Okay, Megs, I'm gonna have to punt you. So if anybody has bought a Holdfast bicycle rack, you can actually speak to me because she was the ex-CEO, right, of Holdfast. So tell us, ask us your question.
I wanted to ask about the handing over to the CEO, to your new CEO that you've hired. I think that obviously is the ultimate point as a business person when you can hand over, but it's also a scary thought. I know for us who've been in our own businesses, we want to control what's going on. So the idea of handing over our baby, and essentially the Epic was your dream child, it could have been a scary thought. So how has that gone? And also, what got you to the point of making that decision?
So to answer the first question about scary handing over to someone, it just comes down to if you get the right person. Throughout in the beginning, I did everything, and I think almost everything has got my fingerprint on it in the Epic. But as I found someone that could take over the area of the business, then great, they took over it, and I got out of it and let them run with it because they were doing it better than I could do it.
Did you have to go through quite a few people to?
Yeah, it was hit and miss. I was lucky in the beginning. I just got amazing staff in the beginning. And so with the CEO, I can see on a day-to-day basis, I can see that she's much better than me at doing what the company needs at the moment. Of course, there's some things that I still get involved in, like if it's brand or about the history and heritage. If the concept comes up for discussion or developing the concept, then I'm involved. But in terms of running a mature events business where it is today, she's way better than me at running that. So it's quite fine. I stay out of it rather. It's actually easier. It's great. Every time something comes up, I'm thinking, oh, thank God I don't have to deal with that myself.
What led you to that decision to actually hand it over?
I mean, it's a natural progression. I knew we at that point. I wasn't. The business really wasn't. It wasn't my style. If we launched a new event, like I saw with the Snow Epic, is that. It's a different company now. You've got like lots of people that they need deadlines followed. They need weekly meetings. They need project meetings. They need project updates. And that was, it's not how we started it. But that is what's required. And we've got there's a whole, you need a whole team to manage all our sponsors and our partners. And she's great at that. And there's a lot of people that work for her that are also great at that. So it is pretty obvious that that was the next step. And it was just a question about getting the right person. I think that was the bigger challenge, was to find the right person.
Okay. Thank you very much. We've got the Twitter competition. You guys ready? Yeah. All right, come up. Where's to take the microphone from Megan or whoever's got it? Cool.
So I just want to say congratulations, and you should guys give yourselves a round of applause. As you can see over there, we've been training in South Africa the whole night.
Well done, guys.
So that's pretty awesome.
Well done.
Last time I was here, I didn't see that. So so you guys made a success. Cool. So there were a lot of cool entries, but it was a 2-horse race. It's pretty obvious there was 2 guys that really stood out throughout the entire night. I just want to send a shout out to Marwan Sassman and Mr. Pigeon Pie. He came second. That's you.
So close.
Awesome tweets, my man. It was very, very close.
He's very good.
Very good. But
well done, Marwan.
Yeah, the winner today is Success Coach. I don't know if Success Coach is in the room. Are you over here? Awesome. Yeah, awesome. We'll just give
Okay, come forth.
Round of applause.
You can hand the book to them. Oh, there we go. Eh? That's fine. That's all right. There we go. Well done, Fiona. This is what happens when you come here, you start to get to know how to tweet, you get to win the prizes. Well done, Kim. Okay, and then we've got the business card draw. Let's just mix this up a bit here. They also get to win the book. Here we go. Right, so pick one. Close your eyes and... There we go. Oh, on sidles.
Heavy business cards, it's always good. Yeah.
So if you're looking for an IP lawyer, contact Audrey Krief. Please come forward and get in your book. You've won. There we go. Well done, Audrey.
Thank you very much. Well done.
Cool. Great. Thank you so much, guys. We've got one more prize to give away with the lanyard. So please, as you walk out, hang your lanyards up on the stand outside. You'll see it there, where you got your lanyards from. Hang it up there, and then in about 15 minutes' time, you will be taking a draw from there. And somebody will be winning a cool prize. Can all the winners, Audrey and Fiona, well, I mean, you know Fiona, please see Jacqueline at the back there, please. We need to capture your details. And then also people that win from that. Thank you very much. We appreciate what we do get for you. Is, okay, you already subscribed to these guys, but...
It's great service.
There we go. This is yours. Thank you so much, the Fruit Cube. And thank you so much for coming. Really appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, yeah, thank you very much, guys. Do enjoy it. Cue some music. There's still some drinks outside and eats. I hope you had an awesome time, and we'll see you guys on the 25th of January next year. 25th of Jan, bookmark it. Cheers, guys.